When did you serve up a revenge so cold that they never even saw it coming? My crush and my best friend forced my hand. I'm not responsible for what happened to them. In 10th grade, I thought things were finally turning around for me because my crush Garrett stood in the middle of the cafeteria holding a red velvet cupcake and asked me to homecoming. I was the happiest girl in the world. But right after I accepted his proposal, he handed Olivia, my best friend since 3rd grade, a small bouquet of flowers and said he just didn't want her to feel left out. I told myself he was just being kind, but the way they looked at each other a second too long made something twist in my chest. Over the next few days, Olivia and I went dress shopping together. She helped curl my hair the afternoon of homecoming and told me I looked perfect, but something in her eyes felt like pity more than admiration. At the park for pictures, Garrett gave me a forced smile before tossing his arm around Olivia and saying she should pose with him just for laughs, and then kept her there for every other photo while I stood off to the side like their unpaid photographer. He spun her around like they were auditioning for a romance movie and kept saying she was a natural. In the car on the way to the dance, they sat pressed together in the back seat while I drove alone in silence, only glancing back once to see their fingers tangled, and Olivia resting her head on his shoulder like she had always belonged there. When Garrett caught me looking through the rearview mirror, he snapped at me to keep my eyes on the road like I was their chauffeur. Once we arrived, they walked into the gym without waiting for me and laughed at an inside joke. I followed after, already drowning. At the dance, I stood by the wall holding a flimsy plastic cup while they danced together, ignoring me like I had never been invited. Every time I tried to approach, they moved further away until the music slowed and I finally caught them kissing behind the bleachers. In that moment, something inside me changed into disgust so complete it felt holy. For weeks I said nothing, smiled through it all, and acted like I had been fine with just being their third wheel. But when Valentine's Day came around and our culinary teacher announced we'd be making chocolates for class gifts, it felt like fate handed me a knife and told me where to aim. I spent days in my kitchen at home under the pretense of testing recipes, but each batch I made for Garrett and Olivia was a calculated weapon. I melted dark chocolate and stirred in enough overproof rum to cling to the roof of their mouth. I crushed laxatives until they turned to powder, measuring the exact dose that would explode in their stomachs 20 minutes after ingestion. I added a touch of ghost peppers into the filling. I tempered the chocolate to a glossy sheen and filled gold wrappers with hearts that looked hand-drawn with care. At the end of culinary class, we headed over to our algebra class for an exam. I handed the treats out casually, mentioning that chocolate stimulates the brain and that mine were extra strong. I then gave Olivia and Garrett my special recipe, saying that friends get special treatment. Everyone ate the chocolates and cleared their desks to take the exam. 15 minutes in, I watched him shift in his seat, legs tightening, forehead covered with sweat. Olivia blinked rapidly, her jaw tightening as she dropped her pencil and pressed her hand to her abdomen. When they both raised their hands and begged to be excused, the teacher, known for never allowing interruptions during tests, told them to sit back down and focus. Garrett gripped the desk while Olivia rocked in her seat, blinking back tears. Just when the room began to quiet again, a deep watery gurgle echoed through the silence. Olivia let out a panicked gasp and then bent over as she vomited onto the floor beside her backpack. It came out in thick ropes that went all over the carpeted floor. Chunks of half-digested chocolate and bile flew into the air. Garrett made a strangled noise and stayed seated, but we all smelled the crap coming from his pants. The smell hit like a slap. It was sharp and acidic with the unmistakable sting of alcohol and rot. Students began covering their mouths, gagging, pushing their chairs back in horror. One girl bolted out of the room and threw up in the hallway. Another screamed after seeing what was causing the odor. Garrett's seat was covered and dripping with semi-solid brown excrement that mixed in with Olivia's vomit, seeping into the carpet and dripping onto the floor in a sickening, sticky stream. The teacher rushed over only to recoil immediately when he got close enough to inhale the alcohol on their breath. Suddenly, it wasn't just a medical emergency. It was a disciplinary one. The school launched an investigation, dragging them both to the office after paramedics confirmed they had alcohol in their systems. Nothing else turned up. No one else who ate my chocolates got sick, and the extra samples I had left were clean. Garrett and Olivia were suspended indefinitely, and their parents pulled them from school in disgrace. I thought I had won. It sure felt that way too. Until a month later when I was walking home, and I saw them standing a few blocks away from my house, clearly waiting for me. Full story on channel, linked below.